You know that moment when a room goes quiet, but only inside your chest? That's where this story begins. And trust me, if you think this is just about a missing gift, you're already underestimating what happens next. My name is Avery Collins. I'm 27 years old. I work as a freelance interior design consultant, and I live alone in a 6th-floor walk-up in Portland, Oregon. I'm the kind of person who plans, overthinks, and still shows up even when my instincts are screaming not to. That flaw will matter later. 2 weeks before Christmas, my mom announced what she called a combined holiday dinner. Thanksgiving plus Christmas. One trip, one table, one forced smile. She said it was easier for everyone. Less travel, less stress, more togetherness. What she didn't say was that she'd already decided who mattered most. I drove 3 hours through cold rain, windshield wipers slapping like a countdown. I almost turned back. Once at a gas station, once at a red light where the road split. But guilt has a way of gripping the steering wheel tighter than you do. So I kept going, with a homemade cranberry tart on the passenger seat and a practiced smile waiting in my glove compartment. Dinner was loud. Too loud. My stepdad dominated the conversation. My brother joked like he was on stage. My aunt laughed a second too late at everything. Christmas music hummed in the background while a football game blared over it. Chaos wrapped in tinsel. I noticed the gifts before anyone said a word. A big decorative bag near my mom's chair. Gold tissue paper. Curled ribbons. My stomach dropped, then lifted. Okay, I thought. At least she didn't forget me. Plates cleared. Forks clinked. Then my mom stood up and clapped her hands, smiling like a game show host. All right. Since we're all together. That was my first warning sign. She handed gifts out one by one. My brother got a brand new smartwatch. My aunt got a designer scarf. My cousin got concert tickets. Hugs. Applause. Thank yous echoing off the walls. I smiled. I waited. Every few seconds, I thought, next is me. Every few seconds, the bag got lighter. Then it was empty. My mom tied the handles together, set it down, and started talking about dessert like nothing had happened. No glance my way. No pause. No explanation. The silence inside me got louder. I waited longer than I should have. Counted to 10 in my head. Then, trying to sound casual, trying not to sound like a little girl asking why she wasn't picked, I said, "Hey, did mine fall out or something?" The room froze. My mom blinked at me. Once. Twice. Then she smiled. That thin, polite smile people use when they've already decided you're being inconvenient. Oh, she said. I didn't get you anything. I figured you'd understand. Understand what? That I drove hours? That I always bring something? That I never ask for anything? No explanation followed. Just forks moving again. Conversation restarting. Like my absence had been planned into the evening. I laughed. Quietly. Because if I didn't, I might have done something unforgettable. I told myself it was fine. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I'd survived worse. But here's the thing no one tells you. Moments like that don't just hurt. They clarify. And right then, sitting at that table, something settled into place. A decision. Calm. Clean. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to cry. And I definitely wasn't going to beg. Because 2 weeks later, when my phone started blowing up, they weren't calling to apologize. They were calling because they needed me. And what I chose to do next changed everything. Hold on, before we get into the real stuff, I want to know, what are you doing at this exact moment while hearing my voice? I love seeing your answers down below in the comments. The drive back home felt longer than the drive there. Same road, same rain, completely different person behind the wheel. I didn't cry. That surprised me. Instead, I replayed the moment over and over. My mom's voice, light and dismissive. I figured you'd understand. As if understanding meant accepting erasure. As if being the reliable one meant being optional. By the time I reached my apartment, something had shifted. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. I unpacked my bag slowly. The untouched cranberry tart went straight into the trash. I stood there longer than necessary, watching it sink beneath coffee grounds and paper towels. It felt symbolic. Dramatic, maybe, but necessary. That night, I muted the family group chat. That alone felt like rebellion. The next morning, I woke up to 5 unread messages. Memes. Jokes. Someone asking who took home the serving platter. No mention of the gift thing. No awkward follow-up. It was as if the moment had been swallowed whole. And that's when I realized something important. If I stayed quiet, they'd rewrite the story. If I protested, they'd call me sensitive. So I did neither. I disappeared. For the first time in years, I stopped being available. No instant replies. No weekend visits. No, sure, I can help with that. I told myself it was temporary. Just space. Just breathing room. But the silence? It started doing something strange. It made them uncomfortable. 3 days later, my mom called. I watched the phone vibrate on the counter until it stopped. No voicemail. An hour later, a text. Everything okay? I waited, then replied, all good. Just busy. That was true, because in that space they left behind, something else filled in. I took on a new client, last minute, high budget. A boutique hotel renovation downtown. The kind of project that could change my entire year. Maybe my career. I poured everything into it. Late nights. Early mornings. Sketches spread across my floor like evidence of a life finally centered on me. And here's the twist no one saw coming. The hotel? It was hosting my parents' company's annual holiday gala. I didn't know that at first. I found out when the project manager casually mentioned the event during a walkthrough. Big client. Important donors. My mom's name dropped into the conversation like it belonged there. I felt my stomach flip. This wasn't planned, but it felt poetic. Over the next week, my phone buzzed more often. My brother asking if I was coming to Christmas. My aunt sending passive-aggressive heart emojis. My mom calling twice in one day, then texting, "Did I do something to upset you?" I stared at that message for a long time. Did she really not know? Or did she know exactly and just didn't want to name it? I typed. Deleted. Typed again. Finally sent. I'm fine. Just taking a step back. Her response came fast. Too fast. From family? I didn't reply. That's when the tone changed. The calls stopped feeling casual. They became urgent. Because 2 days later, the hotel emailed me. The gala plans were a mess. The layout didn't meet fire code. The centerpiece installations weren't approved. They needed revisions. Immediately. And suddenly, my phone lit up like a warning signal. Mom. Brother. Stepdad. All calling within minutes of each other. I answered my brother first. Avery, he said, voice tight. Hey. So, we heard you're working on the hotel. I said nothing. Avery, he repeated softer. They're saying the event might get delayed. Mom's freaking out. She said she tried calling you. I leaned back against my kitchen counter, heart pounding, but my voice stayed calm. Oh, I said. Yeah. I'm leading that project. A pause. Then, can you help? Like, talk to them? There it was. The ask. Not an apology. Not acknowledgement. Just expectation. I looked around my apartment. The quiet, the sketches, the life I'd been building without them interrupting every corner. I'll think about it, I said. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't about a gift anymore. This was about power. About who gets taken for granted. And who finally decides they're done. Because the next move, it wasn't going to be accidental. Here's the thing about being the easy one in the family. People don't notice your strength until you stop using it for them. I didn't call anyone back that night. I didn't text. I didn't explain. I let the silence stretch just a little longer than was comfortable because discomfort was the only language they hadn't trained me to speak. The next morning, my inbox was full. The hotel's event coordinator. The fire safety consultant. The city compliance office. All legitimate concerns. All real problems. And all of them had one thing in common. I was the only person who could fix them quickly. I scheduled a meeting for the following afternoon. Professional. Calm. By the book. No family involvement. Still, my phone kept buzzing. My mom finally left a voicemail. Her voice sounded different.
Softer.
Careful. Avery, honey. I don't know what's going on, but we really need to talk. This gala is important. Please call me. Important. That word again.
Not you. Not I'm sorry.
Just important. I deleted the voicemail. At the hotel, I slipped into work mode. Clipboard in hand. Hair pulled back. Voice steady. I walked the event space, pointing out solutions instead of problems. Adjusted layouts. Approved alternative installations. Coordinated with fire safety. It was clean. Efficient. Impressive. By the end of the meeting, the coordinator smiled at me and said, "Honestly, if this goes well, we want to keep you on retainer." That was the moment I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. I didn't need my family anymore.
But they still needed me.
That evening, I finally answered my mom's call. "Avery," she said, too relieved. "Thank God." I was so worried. "About me?" I asked. A pause. Barely half a second. But I felt it. "Well, about everything," she said quickly. "This gala, it's been such a mess. And when they said you were the designer, I just thought, maybe you could smooth things over." Smooth things over. Like I always did. I leaned against the window, watching rain streak down the glass. "I'm already doing my job, Mom." I know, she said. "But maybe you could prioritize it? For us." There it was again. For us. I took a breath.
Slow.
Deliberate. "You mean for you." Silence. "I don't understand why you're being like this," she said finally. The softness cracked. "You're acting like I did something terrible." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. The way the hurt always circled back to me. My reaction was the problem, not the cause. "Do you remember the dinner?" I asked. "Of course I do." "Do you remember giving everyone gifts?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Yes," she said cautiously. "And do you remember not giving me one?" Her exhale was sharp. "Oh my God. Is that what this is about?" "Avery, it was just a gift. You're almost 30. I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "It wasn't a gift. It was a message."
She scoffed.
"That's dramatic." "Was it?" I asked quietly, because everyone else heard something very clear. And so did I. The line went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was tighter. "I didn't think you cared about that stuff." "That," I said, "is the problem." She didn't apologize. "Not really." She said things like, "I didn't mean it that way, and you know how busy I've been, and you're reading too much into it." Each sentence stacked on top of the last like bricks, sealing the truth behind a wall. Finally, she said, "So, will you help us or not?" That was the moment. The fork in the road. The moment old Avery would have folded. "I already am," I said evenly. "As a professional. And as family?" I smiled. She couldn't see it, but it was there. "I'm not sure I understand what that means anymore," I said. "But I do know one thing." "What?" "For once," I said, "I'm not going to fix this for free." Her silence was loud, because for the first time, she realized I wasn't upset. I was done being taken for granted. And the gala? It was only 5 days away. Once you draw a boundary, people don't just step back. They test it. They lean on it. They try to push straight through and pretend it was never there. The morning after that call, my mom didn't text.
She didn't call.
Instead, my stepdad did. "Avery," he said, voice clipped and businesslike, like we were negotiating a contract. "Your mother's pretty upset. She feels blindsided." I almost laughed. Blindsided. As if exclusion had snuck up on her. "I didn't blindside anyone," I said. "I just stopped pretending." He sighed. "Look, this gala is a big deal. There are investors, board members. If it goes badly, it reflects on all of us." All of us. That phrase was doing a lot of work. "I understand," I said calmly. "That's why I'm treating it like any other client." "And what does that mean exactly?" he asked. "It means timelines, boundaries, and compensation." There it was, the sharp inhale, the discomfort. Because suddenly, I wasn't their daughter or stepchild or emotional support human. I was leverage. He cleared his throat. Are you really going to make this transactional? I looked at my calendar, at the color-coded blocks of work I'd built myself from scratch.
It already is, I said.
You just didn't notice when I was the one paying. We hung up without resolution. That afternoon, the pressure campaign began. My aunt texted, "Family is family, honey." My brother sent a voice note about how stressed mom was. Even my cousin, who I barely spoke to, messaged, "Can't you just let this go?" No one asked how I felt. No one said sorry. They all wanted the same thing, access. Meanwhile, at the hotel, everything was tightening. Permits pending. Vendors waiting. The kind of controlled chaos that either breaks a project or makes it shine. I thrived in it. Every decision I made mattered. And people listened. That was new. 2 days before the gala, the event coordinator pulled me aside. "Just so you know," she said, "your family has been calling the hotel directly, asking for changes, trying to override things." I felt my jaw tighten. Did they succeed? "No," she said quickly. "We told them all decisions go through you." Good. That night, my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door and immediately knew this wasn't a casual visit. Her smile was tight, her coat still on, purse clutched like a shield. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She didn't sit. She paced. "I don't recognize you," she said finally. "You're being cold."
Petty.
I crossed my arms. "I'm being clear." "This isn't you," she insisted. "You're hurting us over something small." I met her eyes. "You keep calling it small so you don't have to call it intentional." Her mouth opened.
Closed.
Then she shook her head. "I raised you better than this." That one landed. Old guilt flared. Muscle memory. But I didn't flinch. "You raised me to be considerate," I said. "You didn't raise me to disappear." She scoffed. "So what? You want an apology?"
I thought about that. Really thought about it.
"No," I said slowly. "I want accountability. And I want you to stop acting like my value only shows up when you need something." Her voice rose. "That's not fair." "Neither was that dinner," I replied. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Uncomfortable. "Finally," she said, quieter. "If this gala fails, it will embarrass us." I nodded. "I know. So, you're really going to let that happen?" I stepped closer. Not angry, just resolved. "No," I said. "I'm going to let you decide what happens next." Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, "if you want my full involvement beyond what's professionally required, then things change."
Publicly.
Privately. Permanently. She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "You don't get to ignore me when it's convenient and claim me when it's useful anymore." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "And if I say no?" I smiled.
Soft. Sad. Certain.
"Then I'll still do my job," I said. "Just not the invisible parts." She left without answering. And as the door closed, my phone buzzed with a new message from the hotel. Final approval pending. Waiting on client confirmation. The clock was ticking. And for the first time, it wasn't my problem to solve alone. The night before the gala, I slept better than I had in weeks. That surprised me. You'd think with permits hanging in limbo, family drama boiling over, and a career-defining event hours away, I'd be pacing my apartment.
But no.
The chaos wasn't inside me anymore. It was finally where it belonged, outside. I woke up to a single text from my mom. "We need to talk. Please." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just urgency. I didn't respond. At the hotel, the air buzzed with anticipation. Staff moved quickly. Florals arrived. Lighting tests ran on loop. The space looked stunning, elegant, intentional, expensive. Every detail carried my signature. Clean lines, warm tones, quiet confidence. The event coordinator walked up beside me. "Your family confirmed attendance," she said carefully, "but they still haven't signed off on the final add-ons." "I know," I said. She hesitated. If they don't confirm by noon, we proceed with the standard plan. I nodded. That's fine. Here's what my family didn't understand. The standard plan was still beautiful. What they were asking for, the extras, the favors, the special seating, the donor showcase, those were privileges, not guarantees. At 11:47 a.m., my phone rang.
Mom.
I answered. Her voice was tight, controlled. We're at the venue. I know, I said. We need to finalize things, she said. The donors are expecting a certain experience. I glanced around the ballroom. The experience is exactly what was approved. That's not what we discussed, she snapped. I kept my voice level. You didn't discuss anything with me. You assumed. Silence. Then, quieter. Avery, this is not the time. I leaned against a column, watching staff adjust centerpieces I had designed months ago, back when my name barely got mentioned at family dinners. It's exactly the time, I said. Her breath hitched. What do you want? There it was. The first honest question she'd asked me in years. I want you, I said slowly, to acknowledge what you did.
Not minimize it.
Not justify it. Out loud. To me. This again, she hissed. You're holding this whole thing hostage over a present?
No, I said.
I'm holding myself back from being used. Another pause. Longer. Heavier. People were walking past her now. I could hear muffled voices. The hum of last-minute chaos. Finally, she said, You're really going to do this to me today? I closed my eyes. I didn't do anything to you, I said. You did something to me weeks ago. Today is just when the bill came due. Her voice dropped, barely above a whisper.
Fine.
What do you want me to say? I straightened. Say you excluded me. Say it was hurtful. Say you were wrong. Silence. Then so quiet I almost missed it. I was wrong. I waited. I excluded you, she continued, words stiff. It was hurtful. I didn't think. I didn't consider how it would make you feel. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And I prompted. And I'm sorry, she said. The words cracked. I exhaled. Thank you, I said. That's all. She sounded stunned. So, you'll help. I already have, I replied. I'll send the final confirmation. I hung up before she could say anything else. At 12:01 p.m., I approved the upgrades. That evening, the gala was flawless. Guests gasped when they entered the space. Donors complimented the design. Board members shook hands, impressed. My mom floated from group to group, smiling wide. But every time our eyes met, something had changed. She saw me, not as an extension, not as a convenience, but as someone who could walk away. Near the end of the night, she approached me, nervous, hesitant. You did an amazing job, she said. Everyone's talking about it. Thank you, I replied. She swallowed. I should have treated you better. I nodded.
Yes.
You should have. No anger, no gloating, just truth. As I left the venue, my phone buzzed with a new email. The hotel had officially offered me a long-term contract, retainer, financial stability, freedom. I smiled, because the best revenge wasn't what I took from them. It was what I finally gave myself. But the story doesn't end there, because Christmas morning, that's when the real shift happened. Christmas morning arrived quietly. No dramatic snowfall. No swelling music. Just pale winter light slipping through my blinds and the hum of my radiator doing its best. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up with dread. I didn't rush to check my phone. I didn't rehearse polite smiles in my head. I made coffee. Slowly. Deliberately. Like someone who owned her time. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Mom. Merry Christmas. Avery. Just that. No emoji. No follow-up. No forced cheer. I stared at it longer than I expected to. Then another message came through. Mom, we'd really like you to come over today. If you want. If you want. That phrase used to be decoration. Something said, not meant. Today it felt different. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I wrapped the one gift I'd bought this year, a simple framed sketch of the hotel ballroom, signed in the corner. Not flashy, not expensive, just honest. Proof of something real I'd built. I showed up at my parents' house 2 hours later. The difference was immediate. No blaring TV, no chaos, no performative cheer. The house felt subdued, like everyone was aware they were standing on newly cracked ground. My brother hugged me first, tighter than usual. "Hey," he said, "it's good to see you." "It's good to be seen," I replied before I could stop myself. He nodded, like he understood more than he was ready to say. My mom stood near the tree. No dramatic entrance. No clapping for attention. Just her, watching me carefully, like she wasn't sure which version of me had walked through the door. Breakfast was quiet. Not tense, but intentional. Conversations had gaps. People waited instead of talking over each other. It felt unfamiliar. Fragile. Then came the gifts. One by one, they were handed out. Smaller this year. Less spectacle. More thought. I noticed my mom avoided looking at me until the very end. Finally, she picked up a small box. "This one's for Avery," she said. No pause. No flourish. Just my name. I took it. The weight felt heavier than it should have. Inside was a simple silver bracelet. Minimal. Elegant. My style. And tucked beneath it, a handwritten note. "I see you now. I'm sorry it took me so long." My throat tightened, not because of the gift, but because of a sentence I never thought I'd read. I didn't say thank you right away. Instead, I reached into my bag and handed her the framed sketch. "This is for you," I said. "From me?" She opened it slowly. Her eyes widened when she realized what it was. "You did this?" she asked. "Yes." Her voice softened. "It's beautiful." "So was the opportunity," I said, even before the drama. She looked at me then, not defensive, not dismissive. Just human. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly. That landed harder than any apology. Later, as dishes were cleared and people drifted into smaller conversations, my mom sat beside me on the couch. "I didn't realize how much I relied on you," she said, "and how little I acknowledged it." I nodded. "I know. I don't want to go back to how things were," she added. "Neither do I said. "But that means things will stay different." She swallowed. "I'm learning that." That was enough. For now. When I left that afternoon, there were hugs. Real ones. Not obligatory. My phone buzzed with a text from the hotel confirming my first retainer payment date. Independence feels different when it's earned under pressure. As I drove home, I realized something important. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. This was a reset. Boundaries drawn. Expectations corrected. Power redistributed. And for the first time, my place in the family wasn't assumed. It was respected. But here's the twist most people don't expect. 2 weeks later, when the next family crisis hit, they didn't demand. They asked. And I got to decide what kind of yes they deserved. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Not frantic. Not dramatic. Careful. That alone told me everything had changed. It was my brother this time. "Hey, Avery," he said. "Do you have a minute?" I looked at the email open on my screen. Another new client inquiry. Another reminder that my life no longer revolved around cleaning up other people's messes. "I do," I said. "What's up?" He hesitated. "Mom didn't want to pressure you, so she asked me to call." I smiled to myself. "Didn't want to pressure you." That was new. "The company's expanding," he continued. "Fast." Too fast, honestly. They're opening a new office space and, well, they asked if I knew someone who could help with the design. I waited, let the silence do its work. And I said, he added quickly, "Only if you actually wanted to." Like, no expectations. There it was. The shift. A year ago, this would have been framed as a favor. 6 months ago, as an obligation. Now, a request. "What kind of help?" I asked. "Consulting." "Paid," he said immediately. "Market rate. Contract. Your rules." I closed my eyes for a second. Not in relief, but in recognition. They were learning.
Slowly.
Awkwardly, but learning. Send me the details, I said. I'll take a look. He exhaled. Thank you. And if you say no, that's okay too. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, not because I didn't know what to do, but because I realized how rare it was to be given a real choice. That night, my mom called, not to follow up, not to push, just to check in. How are you? She asked. I smiled. I'm good.
Busy.
Happy. I'm glad, she said. And she meant it. I could hear it in the way she didn't rush to fill the silence. Your brother mentioned the project. I told him it's completely up to you. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Thank you. She hesitated. I know trust doesn't reset overnight. No, I agreed. It doesn't. But I'm trying, she said quietly. That mattered. A week later, I met them, not at the house, not at a family dinner, but in a conference room. Neutral ground, professional air, laptops open, coffee cups instead of casseroles. They pitched the project. I asked questions. Tough ones. Budget.
Timeline.
Authority.
Decision-making.
All the things I used to swallow to keep the peace. No one flinched. When I slid the contract across the table, my mom read it carefully. Then she signed it without comment. No jokes. No guilt. No, you know you don't have to charge us. That's when I knew the lesson had stuck. The project went smoothly. Boundaries held. Feedback respected. Payments made on time. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was splitting myself in two, professional Avery and family Avery fighting for space. They finally coexisted. One evening, after a long site visit, my mom walked me to my car. I've been thinking about that dinner, she said suddenly. The one where I didn't give you a gift. I didn't respond. I let her keep going. I think, she said slowly, I was punishing you without realizing it. For being independent. For not needing me the way the others did. I looked at her. Really looked at her. That's possible, I said. But it's not something I'll carry for you. She nodded. I know. I just wanted you to hear it. That was the moment I let go of the last tight knot inside my chest. Not because she was perfect, but because she was finally honest. As I drove home, I thought about how close I'd come to shrinking myself again, to accepting the old role because it was familiar. But here's the truth no one warns you about. When you stop accepting crumbs, some people panic. Others adjust. And the ones who adjust, they're the ones worth keeping. The next holiday was already on the calendar. Invitations pending. Traditions in flux. And this time, whatever happened next, I'd be walking in whole. The next holiday dinner wasn't announced with fanfare. No group chat countdown. No dramatic, everyone must be there energy. Instead, my mom sent a simple message. Thinking of hosting a small dinner. No pressure. Let me know how you feel. I stared at my phone and smiled. Because the real revenge story was never about humiliating her. It was about changing the rules of the game so completely that humiliation was no longer necessary. I decided to go, not because I felt obligated, but because I felt steady. When I arrived, the table was smaller. Fewer people. Softer lighting. No performance. No football screaming in the background. Just conversation that paused when someone else spoke. Halfway through dinner, my mom stood up, not to clap, not to announce gifts, but to raise her glass. I want to say something, she said. My shoulders tensed out of habit, then relaxed. I used to think being a good parent meant keeping everything under control, she continued. But I learned this year that control can look a lot like neglect. The table went quiet. She turned toward me. Avery showed me that love without respect isn't love at all. It's convenience. And I don't want to be that kind of mother. No excuses. No jokes. No minimization. Just truth. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. Because the apology wasn't just words, it was behavior, consistency, and restraint. It was every time she asked instead of assumed. Every time she paused instead of pushing. After dinner, as I helped clear plates, my brother leaned over and said, things are better now because you didn't back down. That hit me harder than I expected. Here's what I learned. This is the part one wish someone had told me sooner. Revenge doesn't always look like fire and ashes. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like saying no without explaining yourself. And sometimes it looks like letting people feel the absence of what they took for granted. When my mom left me out of that gift exchange, she thought it was a small moment. Forgettable, harmless. But moments like that are mirrors. They show you exactly where you stand. And instead of arguing with the reflection, I stepped out of the frame. I built a life where my presence wasn't assumed, where my time had value, where my skills weren't family resources to be mined. 2 weeks after that first dinner, they were begging me, not for forgiveness, but for access. And the power wasn't in saying yes or no. The power was knowing I could choose either and still be okay. That's the quiet revenge no one prepares for. Not destruction. Transformation. If you're listening to this and thinking about the one person who keeps crossing your boundaries, if you've ever been the strong one, the understanding one, the one expected to absorb the hurt quietly, let this be a reminder. You don't need to prove your worth by staying. Sometimes the loudest message is walking away long enough to be missed. And when, or if, you come back, you do it on your terms. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. So if this story resonated with you, if you've lived your own version of a silent revenge, do me a favor, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel's Silent Revenge Lab. This is where we tell the stories that don't scream, but still change everything. Because the most powerful revenge is becoming untouchable